This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
Well, the Olympics and Paralympics have just ended, and we're all asking ourselves, where do these athletes get their stamina?
Well, today's guest has not only coached Olympians, but the champions of business and technology as well.
What's the secret? We're about to find out. Lee, welcome to Believe in People.
Hi, Amy. Lovely to be here.
We're glad you're here. Lee, okay, so the Olympics, Paralympics have just ended, and they are extremely motivated athletes out there. Where do they get their stamina? That's where we kind of want to start from.
I might need to get a bit technical there, Amy. What do you mean by stamina?
Well, it's energy in which to keep going. Let's say that.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's variety of components to it. So the first component is there is a genetic component. And I've had to learn this the hard way. When I was younger, believed that everything was nurture, right? It's a system that we came out of. What were we when we came out of the system? And as I've learned more about humans, and first being a physical performance coach and now an emotional, mental performance coach, I've realized there's a genetic component. Some people just genetically have more willpower, more energy, more stamina, as you want to call it, more ability to do workload. And that's the same for sports people with their talent genetically to, right, can I put enough muscle mass on to ride a bike really quickly? Maybe I can, maybe I can't, but there's a genetic component to that. But that's only part of it. Then we have our societal system. So what did you grow up with? What were you taught? What were you exposed to? Were you exposed to people that had high energy and made that a requirement of being in the group and encouraged that and supported that? Or did you grow up in an environment where your natural high energy levels were diminished, where people said, you're too much, calm down, stop being like that? So then we have that part. And then we have a societal part to it. Where did you grow up in the world? There's parts of the world that really support individualism and chasing big goals. And then there's other parts of the world that don't support that it's more about the community and what do you add into the community and what do you add into your peer group. So I think I look at it through the lens of these three things added together. And then where do we end up with all of those starting points?
So let's say that I, Kevin, knew from a very young age that I was never going to be a professional athlete. But I learned, because I just didn't have it, like you were mentioning in your first point. But I learned that I could enjoy various sports, or I could enjoy playing music, or I could enjoy writing. And these things all molded together. And someday down the line, we ended up with me, which is me. How do you I guess the shortest way of asking the question is, okay, well, Olympians aside, what about the rest of us schmoes out there? What can we do?
You hit it right at the beginning, I think, there, Kevin, with what you said about enjoyment. If we find things that fulfill us, that give us moments of joy on a regular basis, it's much easier to keep doing those things. So find things that inspire you, find things that you enjoy doing, find things that fill your cup, find things that when you look back, you're lying on your deathbed, you look back and you think, what do I want to be known for? Well, I was known for being this kind of person or for doing this kind of thing. I think the more you can get in touch with what fills you up and what gives you energy, the more likely you are to have energy and the more energy that you'll have to share with other people. We all know those people in our lives or those situations in our lives that give us energy and those that don't. And I think for me, the most skillful people are the ones that minimize the impact of the situations that don't give them energy and the people that don't give them energy and maximize their opportunity to be in situations that do give them energy.
So then, Lee, okay. So then how does one so let's say from a people are stuck, okay, whether it's emotionally, physically, they just don't know where to take something to the next level. How do you get unstuck, or what do you need to do to take that, like that first move in which to kind of push yourself in a direction that you want to go, or you don't
Yeah,
even know
great.
where you want to go?
Yeah, that's the first part of it, isn't it? Mainly when people are stuck is because they don't know what they want to do or where they want to go next. So I know for me, there's a couple of ways that I got out of being stuck. One was I had a big accident. So in 2010, I crashed in a race and I broke 4 bones in my shoulder. And that was the biggest thing that had happened to me at that point. I had to have 2 reconstructive surgeries to get my left arm to work again. And leading up to the first surgery, I realized that in my life, I was very comfortable if I was in the position of hero. So as long as I was okay and everybody else was not okay, I felt comfortable and I felt good. However, I'm suddenly in this position where I feel incredibly vulnerable. I'd never been that scared. I'd never had an operation before. I'd fallen off my bike and always got away with it. And I thought I was indestructible. Suddenly reality hit and I was not indestructible. And I remember asking a friend to come to the hostel with me, and he was like, it's 1 mile down the road, get a cab. And I did, but then I realized what I was actually asking was, can you please come and hold my hand? Because I'm very scared and I want some emotional support.
Right.
So after that accident, I had to have the realization with myself, oh, I'm not living true to myself. I don't know how to ask for support. And to the point that people don't know when I need it because I never ask for it. So I think you can have these life moments where something happens to you and you have to shift in response to it. And then the other one, which is the one that I see more often, which is why people work with somebody like me, is they're stuck. They don't know what to do next. And what they need is they need somebody to help them. So they need some support, be that a group, be that friends, be that parents, be that a coach, be that a therapist, somebody outside of you that can reflect back what is happening to you in a way that you hear it and go, ah, right, these are the choices that I want to make. There's incredible power in somebody skillfully reflecting back what you're saying. Often in coaching sessions, somebody will say something to me, I'll reflect it back to them and I'll go, oh, I didn't realize that. I'm like, well, you just told me that. I'm not telling you something that you don't already know, but you just haven't paid attention to it. You haven't absorbed it. And just a quick bit of psychology, a lot when we're ruminating, a lot of that is done in our emotive part of our brain, the amygdala. And then when we hear ourselves speak or we hear somebody else repeat it to us, we can move it to the executive functioning part of our brain, which is better at making those long-term decisions. So we can actually transfer that information to the more effective part of our brain for the longer-term decisions.
Uh, I want to ask you about a question about the world that we live in. You are obviously from the UK. You live in the United States now. I don't know if there's a comparable work ethic between the two societies or not, but there is a work ethic in the United States, for example, that disdains failure and demands 110%, even though 110% doesn't exist. Um, do people come to you as a result of that, and because they have to try to find themselves and still cope with what they're having to deal with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's really interesting, Kevin. I think I need to split that into 2 parts. So the first part is, how does where we're born affect us and where we're going? And that can be our community, that can be our country, that can just be our family unit. Did your family unit put a high priority on, let's say, educational success or financial success? Or did your family unit put a high priority on how you move through the world and the relationships that you created? And there can be a bit of agenda to that as well. Predominantly in Western cultures, men tend to prioritize what they achieve, and women tend to prioritize the relationships that they make with people. And obviously, that's very general, but that's just how we tend to move through the world, both what we're told in society. Young women and girls are told it's really important how you get on with people, and that's why social media has had such an impact on young women, because it's allowed bullying in such a level that it's really causing issues for teenage girls. And then we have the advertisement, the hero complex, where for young men, you have to be the hero, you have to go and conquer the world, which is more of a kind of young stereotype. And then we move into, what is it that we want as human beings? What motivates us? And that comes back to the genetic component a little bit of, some people are really competitive. I'm hugely competitive. Can I put that into the right ways of being? And then we look at, is society taking us in the right direction? We have some reckonings to come. We have AI come in that is going to change the way that many people work, and they're not going to, those jobs, those what we might call those kind of labor jobs, they might not exist. There's going to be a point where driving is not going to exist as a job, and that's a huge industry in this country. So, I mean, that's a huge question, Kevin, that I think we could spend 3 hours on. How do I answer that question of, work ethic? I think it's partly societal, it's partly genetic, and it's partly back to your family system. And then the thing that matters is, how do you feel about it? I've gone from working 7 days a week as an elite sports coach to now typically working 4 days a week. I earn more money and I'm happier. However, it took COVID for me to get to that place. And I've never been particularly driven by money. I was a real estate agent when I was younger, and that was a very lucrative career, and I earned a lot of money, and I hated it. And I sold my business and I went into cycling coaching. And the first year as a cycling coach, I earned about a 20th of what I earned the year before as a real estate agent with my company. So I'm maybe not the great person to ask about kind of the financial aspect of it. I know for me, as I've got older, I'm much more drawn to impact. What is the impact that I'm having in the world? How am I supporting other people? That's why I do what I do. How do I support other people be the best version of themselves? And what I see is, with younger people, ambitious younger people, there is a drive for money. And then as people get older, it becomes much more about, what does this matter? What is my existence for? Why am I here? And, some people turn to religion for that. Other people who are not religious, turn to kind of the fulfillment of, what is my role in this world? How do I fit in? And how do I matter?
And I think, it's interesting you say that, Lee, because you come from a perspective of, you're an elite athlete, you train athletes, and then when you, as a coach, you're a performance coach, you then take those transferable skills and teachings to the lay person, I'm just going to say, so that may not have those same disciplines, which I feel can be the case. So how do you transition from that? So you elite athlete, wake up at 4 a.m, train, to the person that just wants to get it, to figure out what it is that is purposeful, let's say, or puts a smile on their face. And then how do you guide them without that sort of imposing maybe too much of the elite athletic pose, let's say?
My job is to help you uncover who you are and what might be getting in the way of you being who you want to be and where you want to get to. Be that, family system stuff, be that learned stuff, be that, fears, imposter syndrome, whatever it is. My clients, Amy, actually are very similar to elite athletes. Many of my clients do sport. My clients are incredibly motivated. Typically, they're the smartest person in the room, or think they're the smartest person in the room. They're founders. So I specifically work with founders and their executive teams. These are very, very driven people. You don't start a company or you don't start a company and the company succeed if you are lazy and if you're not driven. So I am drawn to those people. I like being surrounded by those people. I like being pushed to a higher level myself, and I like getting those people together in groups. So I run intensives for leaders where they come and meet other people like them. And often it's the first time in their life they've been around other people like them. Lots of their life they've been told, you're too much, calm down, stop having such wild ideas, or like, like take a break. And part of my job, like it was with elite athletes, is to help those people be sustainable. So you come back to stamina that we started with. How do you allow people to function or support and encourage people to function at a very high level, but in a way that is not detrimental to their long-term physical or emotional health or to their relationships? I don't particularly like the term balance because I don't think that's the right way to look at it. There's this term of everything needs to be in balance. So you need to give as much time to your family as you do to your work, as you do to your personal self. And I think of it more like seasons. There's times when you're going to be working really hard on your business. However, you also need to know that this is not sustainable forever. How do I then lay the plan so that I don't have to keep working 70 or 80 hours a week? Because that's not sustainable for anybody in any healthy way. And then how do I make sure that I maintain those connections that I have that are important to me? How do I prioritize the ones that are important to me? How do I let go of the stuff that isn't and be comfortable with that? A lot of the work I do with people is helping them say no, because they're going to get a lot of requests. They're going to have a lot of people that want their time, and the higher up the totem pole they go, the more people want something from them because they want to be around their brilliance. We want to be around these shiny people and these shiny objects. So how you support them in making sure that they get to say no so that they don't overburden themselves or get burnt out.
I have a question, but I want to ask first, what is the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, great question, Kevin. So it's when we invent in our heads that we can't do something. We're not prepared to do something. We don't know how to do something. We're not ready to do something. And it's a story. So just a quick bit of teaching. Human beings are very good at writing stories about their experience in the world. So, why did the god of thunder come into existence? Because we didn't know what thunder was. We just knew this thing happened. So we needed to give meaning to it. So there's this god that's angry at us, or, whatever the mythology is. I'm not great on Greek mythology, but we invent a reason why something is happening. And we do that in our lives daily. Somebody texts you and says, we need to speak. Many people will go, what have I done wrong? And start racking their brains and creating the stories of what did I say to that person last time I spoke to them? Or what did I do? What have I forgotten to do? Instead of just being curious and going, oh, interesting, they want to speak to me. I wonder what that's about. So again, a lot of the work I do with people is helping them unravel the stories. And part of that story can be this imposter syndrome of I'm not good enough, or I can't do this properly. And when we use an imposter syndrome, it's usually about something you're already doing. So the evidence is there that you can do this thing, or that you're about ready to do this thing, but you're telling yourself this story that you can't. And there's this interesting point when we learn new things where we don't quite know how to do it, but the only way to learn how to do it is to do it. And we have to step into actually doing the thing and practicing the thing. Be that leadership, be that running and starting a company, be that the first time we go to the Olympics or a World Championships.
So that's fear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so imposter syndrome is linked to fear for sure.
Fear,
The
anxiety. Yeah.
fear of I might make a mistake. So, to go back to what you were talking about, kind of American culture, Western culture, there's a lot of fear in our culture about I have to be perfect. And if I'm not perfect, I'm worthless. My worth is on what I achieve, not my worth is on how I make other people feel around me, or the connections that I have, or the communities that I create. And I think in America, we probably veered a little bit too much to my worth is what I do, instead of my worth is how do I contribute? And often as we get older, that veers more to, oh, it matters more about how people feel about me than how much money I have in the bank.
What do you think is the most important? We talked about stamina. What do you think is the most important advice you give to athletes who are truly trying to build their stamina, but they struggle to see the results? Like they're working so hard, they're trying to push through. They just are really struggling.
People aren't being effective. So there's a belief, and I'm trying to think, I think it was Scott Galloway who had a piece on this the other day. There's a belief, no, it was Chris Williamson, who's got a podcast called Modern Wisdom. He did a post yesterday, I believe it was, about there's this belief that because you work hard, you deserve success. And there's not that direct a correlation between working hard and the output, right? You have to be working effectively. I could go into my yard now, I could dig a hole and I could fill a hole in, and I could dig a hole and I could fill a hole in, and I could do that 100 times a day, every day for 10 years, and I've achieved nothing. I've just dug a hole and filled a hole in. So, work isn't a great indicator of what the output's going to be. We have to be doing things effectively. So when somebody is at that point where they feel like I'm working really hard and things aren't changing, what are you doing is where I would be looking. What is the work you're doing? Are you doing effective work? And with athletes, it was often, especially my athletes, which was sprint athletes, they were doing too much work. So they couldn't recover from the work that they were doing. So they were just fatigued to the point that their body couldn't recover. And it's the same with founders. They're doing so much work, they're taking on so much responsibility. Often what I'm doing with them is I'm helping them share that responsibility with other people. I'm helping them coach their leadership team so that they can step away and they can focus on what they need to focus on to be effective. So they can do the visionary stuff, they can do the planning, they can do the networking that they might need to do, the fundraising, and somebody else is doing how do we make sure that this package is shipped? Right? They don't necessarily need to be doing that part of it. They're not doing the customer service part of it. So I think often we're overworked, and we believe this kind of Western belief that if I work harder, I will get more. And there's definitely a correlation between if I work effectively and I work hard, I will get more. But there's not a correlation between if I just work harder, I will get more. It has to be effective.
So then what would your definition of success be?
I don't have one, Kevin, because I think
goodness.
that's so
That's refreshing.
particular. Well, it's so particular to each person. My definition of success might be different from somebody else's definition of success.
Right.
When I started the Olympic Development Program for USA Cycling, I deliberately didn't put targets on the program. And the first line in the manifesto of the program was, the athletes leave this program better human beings than they found it. That was the experience I wanted them to have, because I knew if we worked on them being better human beings, the sporting results would be a byproduct of that. So I believe strongly in you work on your processes, and the results are a byproduct of having great processes and being excellent daily. The results will take care of themselves, because you can't legislate the results. When somebody starts a business and they say, right, I want to sell my business for $1 billion. You might be able to, you might not be able to. We don't know. However, if you do the things that create a really robust business that is making money and growing, somebody will be interested in buying it. So let's focus on making sure that you are creating a robust business that is making profit and is growing. And when it comes to success, it's different for everybody. If your internal system is, the more money I have in the bank, the more successful I am, well, then the more money you have in the bank, the more successful you will feel. However, that wouldn't work for me. Once I've got past a certain point of income, and I can, the marker for me is, can I fly business class when I fly internationally so that I can get to my destination feeling refreshed and sleep on the plane? That's kind of where I need to be for income. If I can do that, I don't necessarily need a lot more income. I want to make sure that I'm saving for my future and I have some financial freedom, but I don't look at my bank account and go, right, every time there's an extra zero added, woohoo, I'm celebrating. So I personally think part of the journey of life is actually stopping and going, what is success to me? What would success feel like? And what do I need to create to feel successful? And once you have that, it's much easier to know where you're going. Whereas if you are taking on somebody else's version of success, your parents' version of success, right? You go to college and you do this, and you become a dentist or you become a doctor. That's their version of success. If you've taken that on and it's not your version
Right.
of success, it won't feel successful to you, even though other people looking in might go, well, look at that person, they're such a success.
So true. And I think that this segues beautifully into, I mean, you've worked with so many people, and we ask this question, Lee, to all our guests at the end of our podcast. With all the people that you've worked with and all of your experiences, why do you believe in people?
Oh, I don't know. I just kind of like people. I'll tell you a little story. There's two stories I'd like to share here. So the first one is, for a long time, I believed I didn't like people. And then COVID really taught me I did. And the reason I believed I didn't like people is because I'm more introverted than I realized. So when I spend a lot of time around a lot of people, I get exhausted and I need time to be by myself. So however, COVID came. I went from working in the velodrome 6 days a week, being around people constantly, and people constantly going, what should I do, coach? What do I do here, coach? What gear should I use, coach? How do I do this, coach? So just so much from me that I was constantly exhausted. When I left that environment and the velodrome's closed and I can't go there and be around people, I realized how much I missed people. And that was actually the start of this coaching journey. Was I created a men's group for myself and some of my closest friends, because I'd been in men's groups in the past in UK, loved it, loved that community. And I realized I was missing being in community a lot. So it made me realize that I like people. I'm just particular about the people that I want to spend my time with. And it's the same in my coaching now. I know who I coach well and who I'm a good coach for and who I'm not a good coach for. My people are the ones that think they're the smartest people in the room, and they probably are, and they're super driven. And my job is to help them find the fulfillment, the love, compassion, connection that is going to make that a lifelong journey for them, rather than something that's a flash in the pan. They get burnt out, they get physically sick or emotionally sick.
Yeah.
So I help them have that sustainability. And I just, I'm fascinated by what human beings can do when we work together. I just love it. I love watching smart people get together, share ideas. I believe in the goodness of human beings. I think we need support in that. I think especially in this country, greed is so baked into our society that we need some guardrails around greed to support everybody. And I would like to see everybody succeed. And I definitely believe that we don't all have to have the same outcome. I don't think we all need to be making the same money or have the same level of achievement. However, we should all be able to achieve something, and we should set the society up so that people can really be in their zones of genius, whatever it is, right? You might want to be the best bartender in the world, or you might want to go to Mars. I don't care which one it is, just that you have the opportunity to be the best version of you and you get support in that.
Lee
That's great.
Povey, thank you so much for sharing half an hour of time with us. Of course, I'm going to leave the bartending job to somebody else. Thank
As
you.
long as you know what
As
motivates
long
you,
as, hey,
Kevin.
listen, Kev. Thanks, Lee. Really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Lovely to meet you both. Great
I just
questions.
want
I really
to,
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say before you go, I actually went to my first cycling race. I'm just outside of Quebec City at the moment, and
Oh, wow.
they had a big cycling with the champion from the Tour de France was actually in it, and man, those guys.
Amazing.
Oh man, they really fly. I mean, anyway, it was
It's
great.
unbelievable.
Thank you, and say hi
Thanks.
to my friends in Long Beach.
Thanks a lot, Lee. I'll let you know. This will be posting in about a week or so.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. This was great fun. Great questions. Really interesting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Lee.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a
Lovely to meet
great
you
day.
both.
What do old people say to you? I mean, I was shied away from asking the question because you're obviously talking to high-end people and high-end business people and what have you. But I'm a person who retired 2 years ago after working 7 days a week and being on call and achieving whatever I was told. What do those people say to you? What the fuck do I do now? I'm
Yeah.
fucked.
I mean,
Nobody
I have
wants me.
I have
useless.
I have two types of client. So I have the young founder, and then I have the kind of middle-aged plus man that's going, okay, so I did everything I was told to do. I have the nice house, I have the attractive partner, I have the 2 kids, I have the big car.
Right, right.
Now what the fuck do I do with myself?
Yes.
And I really like the Japanese philosophy. So in Okinawa, the Japanese
Harry
island,
Carey?
there is no, and I mean that's one option. And to be fair, and that's why male suicide rates are rising, because middle-aged men are getting to this point where they don't understand what the point of their life is.
Yeah.
There's a guy called Richard Reeves. If you check out his podcast episode on Diary of a CEO with Richard Bartlett, they talk about how men are really struggling because we value our lives on this achievement. And if we don't have a purpose, we don't know what to do with ourselves. And young men at
Yeah.
the moment are really struggling because they don't know what their purpose is. Women don't need them in the same way that they used to. Family systems are different. So young men are struggling, and middle-aged men are struggling, probably retiring or finishing, maybe your first marriage or second marriage is ending. You don't have the community you used to have. So what I say to guys like that is, one, join a men's group, get a community. Absolutely vital that you have a community of people that you can come and talk to and share with, that understand you. And then the second one is, find something that's going to give your life meaning. So this Okinawa concept is, they have no word for retirement in Okinawa because nobody retires. You work until you die, but you just do different things. So you might have been a corporate CEO and now you're selling shells in a little corner store, but you're doing something that gives your life meaning. And it doesn't have to be work. It can be volunteer. It could be coaching. It doesn't matter what it is. You just have to find something that gives you meaning as to, why am I getting up today? Human
So
beings
true.
are designed to have a role. It's like my dog, right? I have a 70-pound German Shepherd Husky. I need to give her jobs to do, or she gets really upset. And that job can be chasing the ball, or that job can be listening to my commands, but she wants a job. And human beings are the same. We want to feel like we are a productive part of society. And money doesn't really factor a lot in that. It's, what's my purpose? What am I doing here?
Yeah.
Thanks,
So
man.
get a purpose, Kevin.
Thanks a lot, Lee.
I'm gonna get my guitar out.
Whatever it is.
Thanks, Lee.
All right,
Take
guys.
good
Lovely to
care.
meet you both.
All the best.
You too.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
See you
Thank
now.
you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
The perspective that Lee has is refreshing because, well, first of all, I admire the fact that he's very decisive on the type of people he wants to work with, the people he wants to hang around with, the kind of way in which he leads his life. And it kind of gives you reassurance that, I can kind of lead my life like that. So I appreciate his point of view.
Well, yes, and it's interesting that he says, we're programmed to get up in the morning and do something, and I agree with that. But out of speaking to him, the other part is, what he is striving to help people with is that, and you have to be satisfied with who you are when you go to bed as well. If you want to meet another interesting person like Lee Povey, join us again next week, because this podcast, Believes in People, is full of them. Thank you very much.
It's so true. Thanks, Kev.